What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of The Block is Hot. Today is CNFT Market Update Saturday, which means we are going over the CNFT market. We're going to be going over the general market, we're going to be going over the top projects of the week, and we're also going to be going over some of the different mints that happened and my personal price predictions for them. But without further ado, guys, let's get into it. First things first, guys, we have to talk about overall CNFT volume right now in the marketplace. Now, this is pretty insane. Ever since this year started in January, when we had our original push up in the whole CNFT space, we have been averaging between 1.5 and 2.2 million ADA every single day in the CNFT market. And if you look here, guys, even just last month, 2.2 million, 2.1 million, about 2 million, about 2.2 million. Some of the bad days were about 1.5 to 1.6 million, and we pretty much traded in this range for the past couple months, ever since the year started. And then we had some great days at 3.2 million, but now this is the thing that's really worrying me here. Look at the past week. 1.9 million down to 1.3 million to 1.5, and then literally since the first of this month, 1 million, 1.07 million, 1.1 million, 1 million. And today we can't really count because today hasn't finished yet, but we're looking at about 604,000 ADA. Now, what does all this mean? What am I getting to here? Well, the main point that I'm trying to get to here is that volume, on average, is almost 50% less this week than it has been over the past several months. And that is a really big deal. Volume is telling us how much money is getting pumped into a certain space. And the fact that the volume has gone down so much means that we have to alter our game plans as far as long-term investors in this space. Now, I'm super bullish on CNFTs in the long term. But we have to realize, guys, that there are going to be cycles with every single asset. And right now, with all of the risk and all of the uncertainty going on in the world, a lot of these higher risk and speculative assets have been getting a lot less volume because people are taking money from high risk stuff such as NFTs or Cardano NFTs, and they're starting to put it into safer alternatives such as stablecoin farming, going on Anchor protocol, putting it into Bitcoin, different things like that. Now, what you guys will notice throughout the video is that a lot of these different CNFTs and just NFTs in general have been dropping a lot in price. There's no way that these prices can sustain if volume takes a 50% hit. It just doesn't work that way. So as you see here, guys, Pavia that was at 400 is now at 365. Clay Nation 1600 dropped down to 1430. Boss Planet that was between 4 and 500 is now 369, 370. So the big thing is knowing that this volume is going down a lot, knowing that a lot of people are selling, how should we as investors adapt to this market to make sure that we're not losing money and we actually make the most money possible in a long-term scenario? If you're in my Discord, I actually gave a little announcement of what I personally think people should do and what I'm personally doing. And I'm just going to tell you guys what it is. Right now, I think it is way too risky to mint any new project. If you look at all these new projects minting, a lot of them have been going under mint price and just haven't been performing well. And we're talking about projects that look really, really great. So the first thing I'm doing, unless it's like a showstopper, like overexposed, I am not minting any projects for right now. There's just not enough volume coming in to support all of these new projects that have been coming out. And a lot of times you're better off doing what I'm doing instead, waiting to see how the drop does, waiting to see where the floor is, and then hopefully getting some good snipes in near the bottom from people that undervalued their NFT. The second thing I'm doing is I'm having a lot of money on the sidelines. So I actually sold a decent amount of stuff, a decent amount of my crypto recently, and I'm just putting it into UST, which is Terra Luna stablecoin, and I'm able to get 19.5% on Anchor protocol right now, literally risk-free. The next thing I'm doing as far as this market goes is I'm going to see how low things go if we really do see a continued drop in volume and if we really do see stuff like the Ukrainian war escalate to the point that a lot of people are just pulling out of these riskier assets. If a lot of people pull out of these riskier assets, then that's the time that I'm going to use my money that's on the sideline to buy into some of these blue chip CNFTs. I don't know the next month. I don't know the next day. I don't even know what I'm going to eat for dinner today, okay? All I know is that in 5-10 years, this stuff is going to be a lot bigger, and it's important to be in the right ones and not get into these super risky, smaller projects. It doesn't make sense for me right now to mint these new projects that may or may not succeed. It doesn't make sense for me right now to get into these super small cap CNFTs looking for 100x gains. The thing that makes the most sense to me is realizing that we are in a crazy market right now. To be a lot more hands-off, to not over leverage myself, and when prices drop or if prices continue to drop, to get into these blue chip CNFTs for long-term investments. Things like Spacebudz, things like Pavia, things like Dead Pixels, things like potentially Boss Planet, right? We have to be getting into these blue chips because I'll tell you what, guys, if there's a situation where volume continues to drop and a lot of people get out of CNFTs and Ethereum NFTs and people get out of riskier stuff because of the things escalating in this world, there could be a day where we could see these prices drop significantly. And now all of a sudden, maybe you can buy a Spacebud for 4,000 ADA again. Maybe you can, get a Clay Nation for 1,000 ADA or 800 ADA. Like, we have no idea what's going to happen. And that's why right now, when there's so much uncertainty, I'm really putting a lot of my money on the sidelines. But you bet your butt that when these things drop, or if these things continue to drop and I continue to see volume drop, then that is going to be a golden opportunity for us to basically invest in these for the long-term hold. Now, there's one more point I want to bring up before I go into the top 10 projects here, and that's just the volume drops in every single one of these major projects. I mean, Boss Planet Real Estate down 73%, Pavia down 63%, Cornucopias down 43%, down 43% for Boss Cat. I mean, this is just insane. And honestly, the fact that these numbers have held up as well as they have means that a lot of people in this industry, regardless of what the belief is out there, are really holding these different projects, because that means that a lot of people haven't really been getting into these projects as far as buying recently, yet the price has dipped, I would say, less than 10% for the majority of these projects. Now that all that stuff's out of the way, guys, we have project number 1, which is Boss Planet Real Estate with 750,000 ADA this week. The current price for these pieces of land is 369 ADA. Now, in my personal belief, guys, unless a lot of things shift and we start getting a lot more volume, my personal belief is that in the short term, we're going to see an overall market dip as far as every single CNFT out there. So I'm a little bit more bearish in the short term, and for that reason, I'm going to be very hands-off and not really looking for any buy positions in this point in time. I really want to see what's going to happen in the market first. Short term here, my personal price prediction is that we're not going to break above that 400 ADA level for a while. There's just too many pieces of land at that 400 price. I mean, look at that, guys. Look at how many pieces of land are at that 400 and all these pieces of land leading up to it. I personally think that's a lot more likely for us to drop down to 350 first. Maybe we'll get some buys at that 350 range, and if we don't get enough buys, then we could see a 300 ADA price. Now, I don't hate buying this piece of land at 300 ADA if we get down there as far as a long-term investment. That might be a situation where I'm trying to average down my price a little bit and don't hate buying at that 300. Now, we could drop even below that. Who knows? I'm just a little bit bearish in the short term because I don't like the way the volume is looking. Project number 2, guys, is Pavia with 729,000 ADA worth of volume. It's pretty funny to see that Boss Planet and Pavia are constantly competing for that number 1 and number 2 spot, at least in the past month. As far as price goes, we're looking at about 365 ADA, which is one of the lowest ADA prices we've seen in a very long time. After they dropped their 40,000 additional plots of land, we actually bounced off this 360 ADA level. Now, usually I'd be like, hey, this is a really good time to buy because this is where the last support level was when the previous drop happened. However, like I said, guys, I'm a little bit more bearish in the short term. I'm going to see where this goes, but if this somehow drops to that 300 ADA range, then I think that would be a really, really great long-term buy as far as getting into a good blue chip project at that price. The next project on our list, guys, is number 3, Cornucopias with 560,000 ADA worth of volume. Now, I'm about to go into a freaking rant with this project because I am honestly very disappointed with the announcement that I just heard. If you guys don't know yet, they announced that they're going to be launching their new motorcycle-looking bike in this game. It hasn't even been 1 week since they sold 12,000 of these at 120 ADA a pop and made over $1.5 million. And a week later, you're going to announce another vehicle sale. I'm telling you guys right now, and this is coming from someone that loves this project, that made an entire 30-minute video on this project. This is coming from someone that spent 15 vehicles at Mint to get these guys and have not sold a single one. If they sell over 10,000 of those new motorcycle bikes, then I am selling my entire collection, because it does not make any sense for them to launch another vehicle within 1 week of dropping their first vehicle, especially when they literally made $1.5 million. Like, I know that these games cost a lot to make, but you are shooting your investors in the freaking leg by doing this. Let this floor build. Let the secondary market build. When you're releasing another vehicle so soon, that is not only going to hurt the price of all these bubble jets, and I'm telling you guys right now, if they release 10,000, these bubble jets are going to go for under 100 ADA, and those new motorcycles they're having are going to be an L, and you're going to lose money on them. Doesn't make any sense to me. I'm hoping and I'm praying that they have a little more common sense and they only release a couple thousand, because I'm telling you right now, it is going to destroy the trust of the entire project, and people are going to be worried about investing in their future stuff. Because if all of a sudden everyone bought these bubble jets for 120, and now all of a sudden they release those new motorcycles. Now all of a sudden they release 10,000 of those, and these dip below 100. And now all of a sudden everyone's going to lose money on those new motorcycles because there's not enough new volume, and because these bubble jets crash. Then they're just going to kill their fan base, and they're going to kill the trust that I have in them as a team, and being able to deliver on this stuff, and being able to basically help the investors that get in early make a profit. Because when you're buying these bubble jets, you're buying something on the promise that there's going to be a game in the future. And as investors, we're taking a lot of risk buying this stuff. So it just kind of blew my mind. I'm hoping that it's like a limited thing and there's only a couple thousand, but I'm telling you guys right now that if they release 10,000, I'm going to be selling my bubble jets, because I just have no idea if they're ever going to do that again in the future. Let's say next week they release these motorcycles. What's going to happen after the week of that? Oh, now there's going to be a new Krabby Patty formula, hamburger machine thing from SpongeBob that we can buy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's very poor planning as far as the strategy goes for the secondary market. Sorry, guys, I really wasn't planning to go that in on them. Like, I do love the project. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's like, bro, come on, dude. 1 week later, like, you can't expect to make an announcement like that, not get me to go off on you. But regardless, project number 4 is Boss Cat Rocket Club, sitting at about 550,000 ADA. Now, the really funny thing with Boss Cats is that it actually did break below 2,000 ADA. And it was funny because last week when I made my last market update video, I was like so confused how it wasn't going below 2,000 ADA. Like, it kept bouncing off that 2,000 ADA mark. I was like, I'm really surprised it hasn't gone to like 1,600 or 1,800. And what's funny is this past week, just a couple of days ago, we were in that 1,600 to 1,800 range. We had a lot of sales around 1,700, 1,650. There was even one lower down here that sold for 1,500 ADA, which was pretty insane. So if you got in at that price range, you got a really good quick flip, in all honesty. Now, where do I see this project going? Well, we could see it drop back down like the rest of the market, but there was actually a pretty big news update, which makes me a little bit more bullish with this project. They recently announced that they were launching their own DAO called Boss DAO, and that they were going to sell 10,000 of these new DAO NFTs at 150 ADA each. Now, that is a tremendous amount of money. That is over 1.5 million ADA. Now, the cool thing about it is that they're going to be taking a lot of that money and they're going to be buying a lot of Boss Cat stuff for their DAO. I think a lot of the reason they're making this DAO is because Rat's DAO isn't purchasing any Boss Cat stuff. So I think they made this DAO. They're going to get a ton of money from that. And then we're going to see them buy up a bunch of their own stuff, which is going to increase the price. So I personally think that getting into that DAO probably isn't the best move, just because I think there isn't enough volume to have a crazy sellout with that. But I personally think that we could see a huge price increase if they just start buying a lot of their own stuff. Now, I'm still on the belief that the Boss Planet would be the better buy over the Cats, but just something to think about. Probably sometime later in this month, we could see a big push up, especially if that DAO just starts buying up a bunch of this stuff. Next project on our list is number 5, Fudbuddies, with 512,000 ADA worth of volume. Now for this, I pretty much said, hey, I'm gonna quick flip this, and that's what I did. I bought, I think the mint price was like 52, and I was able to sell it for 75 or something like that. Now the interesting thing about this project is that they do have a pretty strong community, and they haven't really dipped below that 50 ADA price, which was around their mint price. One thing that we've been seeing with a lot of these new mints recently is that they haven't been doing too well, but a lot of times we will see a pop-up whenever it gets near the mint price. So for example, if these minted for 52 ADA, then as soon as we get down to that 52 ADA range, we usually have a pretty big pop-up, just because that's like a psychological thing. People are like, oh, this is near mint price, I'm gonna buy in around this price. So pretty interesting. If you like the art and the community and all that stuff, then I think getting in around 50 ADA, if it dips to that, is a pretty good buy. Personally, this was more of a quick flip to me. I don't really see them doing too much utility as of now, rather than just having some cool art and a strong community. The next project on our list today, guys, is Mandrillz, coming in at number 6 with 436,000 ADA worth of volume. Mandrillz is currently sitting at about a 57 ADA floor, and if you watch the last week market update video, that's pretty much where I said that would be a pretty strong floor at. So we haven't really moved. And this is just another prime example of why I'm taking a break on minting new projects. It's like, until we see volume go up a lot, there's just not enough money to really fund all these crazy projects. I mean, this artwork looks insane. It's a nice ape looking project. They have a strong community, and it is literally going near mint price. So if a project like this isn't doing well or isn't profitable in a lot of situations, then why the heck am I going to continue to mint a bunch of stuff? It's much better to take a step back and realize, like, oh my gosh, a lot of this stuff isn't even profitable to mint. Maybe I'm better off waiting for volume to go up, and maybe I'm better off, you know, buying some snipes on the secondary, or saving my money up to dollar cost average into blue chips. That's personally the realization that I had. If you like these, buy some for the long term. This seems to be a pretty strong support still, and then hopefully when volume increases in the future, these will have a nice push up. Coming in at number 7, we have the Boss Cat rocket parts, and this is a very similar situation to the cats. We actually did dip below that 4,000 ADA, which I was waiting for, and we did go to 3,000 ADA, which was actually my price target. So I wasn't able to get in at that 3,000 ADA price, but if you were able to make a good 500-600 ADA just quick flipping it, because it jumped back up to 4,000 ADA rather quickly. As far as the price on these guys, I do think that we're going to dip, you know, back towards 3,000 ADA, but I do think later in the month, if that boss DAO is successful, that we can see a pretty big push up on these guys. I personally think that if you're the risky type, if these do dip to about 3,000 ADA, you buy some and hopefully get a good quick flip off of it, or you buy some and hope that that boss DAO starts sweeping the floor on these guys. Next on our list at number 8 is the Ape Society at 373,000 ADA worth of volume. The awesome thing with this Ape Society project is that I'm looking at it and it doesn't say 380 ADA, which it was like literally stuck there forever. I can't even explain to you guys. I was like, is this like not refreshing properly? Because every time I looked at it, it was 380. So it's nice to see that it did break above 400, and it's nice to see that it did that when the whole market has pretty much been bearish as far as CNFTs and volume goes this past week. So I personally think that 400 ADA, you know, level is probably a decent support, unless the whole market just really starts to tank soon. Next on our list, guys, is Spacebudz, coming in at number 9 with 360,000 ADA worth of volume. Now, I have the same opinion about Spacebudz that I have in every video. You shouldn't really be worried about price movement too much. This is something you buy and you hold for the long term. Right now, it's about 6,000 ADA, and I personally think that there is a world that we could go down to 5,000 ADA as far as a buying opportunity goes. If we go down to 5,000 ADA, I think that is just a tremendously beautiful buy, especially since ADA is only 85 cents, and especially since there's 5,000 is just a really big number that I think a lot of people would be attracted to. So if we do go down to that 5,000 level, and if it only costs $4,250 to buy a Spacebud, then I personally think that might be one of the best long-term investments and plays that you can make in the CNFT space. Number 10 on our list actually just released yesterday, and that is Radioactive Crocs Club at 242,000 ADA. These Radioactive Crocs were 50 ADA for about 7,000 people that were in the whitelisting, and then they were 100 ADA for the remaining supply for the public. Right now, they're going for about 80 ADA, and this is the prime example of why I am stepping away from all mints in the near future until we get more volume. We just don't have enough volume to support this kind of stuff. I mean, this is a great looking project from a great team with a lot of history, with the C4 token, with breeding in the future, with all these things, and this is going below that 100 mint price for the public. It is just too risky, in my opinion, to get into these different projects coming out when volume is this low. As far as price predictions go, I would be a little hands off for now and see where we go with this. I really thought that it wouldn't dip below that 100 ADA, but it did. So right now, we're just going to be hands off. This could drop all the way down to 50 ADA, this could drop to 60 ADA, this could stay at 80 and then pump up to 100. Who knows? I personally think, though, that taking a step back makes a lot of sense. Now, as far as their other Crocs, we literally had a run up all the way to 365 to 400 ADA before these released, and I was actually able to sell some of my Crocs when this happened and really capitalize on the hype. Now, as far as these Crocs go, if you can get them for 200 ADA, I think that's a pretty good long-term buy. And it's crazy because these dropped so much because everyone was trying to get in for the whitelisting, and that's just another situation where it's actually better to sell your Croc or it's better to sell your NFT when the hype is super high than to hope that the mint does really well. I was able to snipe a couple of these guys at around 200 ADA, and I think that's a pretty good long-term buy. I think a lot of people that bought these to get into the whitelist are kind of freaking out and just selling them, especially since the radioactive ones aren't doing too well. So I think as far as a long-term play goes, 200, anything around 200 or lower would be a steal in my opinion. Now that we're past the top 10 projects, let me just go over rapid fire some of the other ones that I've been having my eye on recently. These overexposed Genesis have been doing extremely well, and they have a 680 ADA floor. Now they had run up all the way to 900 ADA, and I personally think, even though it's pretty risky to get in at this price, I personally think these are going to go up even more leading up to the drop. I think a lot of people are going to want that whitelisting, so in order to be a part of their overexposed project, I think that these could go up a decent amount. Now, what I would personally do if I owned some of these is I would buy them now. I would wait until the whitelisting drop is about to happen where hype is the highest. I would then sell them, knowing that you're probably going to make more profit or safer profit selling these before the drop than actually getting that drop. And then what happens is all the people that owned these in order to get that whitelisting are going to sell them. That's when I would pay attention to potentially buy one for the long term, because I think Overexposed is going to be an OG project that lasts for a while. And on top of that, I think that these are going to have a lot more utility in the future. So that's personally what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to buy any at this price right now, just because I do think the market is shaky and I think there was just so much hype to this project, but it's definitely something I have my eye on. Lazy Llamas did dip as expected from that 400 level, and they dipped all the way down to about 350 where they held support for a little bit, and then they actually dropped even lower, heading towards that 300 range. I personally think with the way the market is, we could see this drop all the way to 300, and if that does happen, then that would be a good long-term purchase, because I do really like this project. This past week, even though most of the market went down, we have Jarheads still staying at that 380 ADA level. So I personally think as far as a long-term investment goes, this is still a pretty good buy at this level. We really haven't seen it dip below 275 to 280, just because a lot of people that are buying these are holding them for the art and not just trying to make a quick buck. Smooth Yeti Mountain Club did raise from that 53 ADA floor that we saw last week, and now we're looking at about 63 ADA. I still like this project a lot. I think that they're doing really well, and I think this could be a sleeper pick as far as a long-term investment goes. I'm personally just continuing to hold mine, and it's pretty crazy to see how resilient as far as price has been for this project. Metadams is releasing today, and this is one of the top projects minting this week. I'm actually not minting it because, like I said, I'm just taking a step back. Now, Prime Beavis is giving you basically alpha access into this game, and that's why we've had such a run up. I personally think that these are going to dip soon. I think that a lot of people are buying them on the hype of this Metadams project, and I think after today, after this releases, we could potentially see these drop down to 100 ADA, where in that situation, maybe it's a good long-term buy. I have no idea, but personally, I think that if you're owning some of these, it might not be a bad idea to sell on the hype right now. I could be totally wrong, and these could just, go crazy, but I'm just telling you guys what has statistically been happening almost every single time with almost every single project. Project 2090 has been having a run up recently too. They're actually having a way to mutate these guys later in the month. So I think that we could see a continued run up with these guys just on the hype of being able to mutate them. We'll see. I personally am not invested in this project, but I know a lot of people like them, and I know there's a lot of hype that's been building with this specific CNFT. Borg Club is another interesting play where we had dropped all the way down to like 230 ADA, and then we found support there, and we've been bumping all the way back up to 270. The same thing goes for their chips. Their chips are around 100 ADA. Now, their announcements have been very quiet in the Discord. They literally haven't typed in their announcements in a while, which is kind of sketchy to me. I'm hoping that means they're just hard at work and trying to get the utility done with these different chips. Once all that stuff is announced, and once we have a launch date for the chip's usabilities, and once we can actually mutate these guys, I think a very similar thing is going to happen to lazy llamas, where now all of a sudden those chips that are 100 ADA could go to 200-300 ADA just because people are going to want them to be able to do the different stuff with them. And I think these Borgs could have a run up all the way to about 350 to 400 ADA. We'll see. I know there's going to be a lot of hype building up with that, and if you're buying in now before that hype is announced, I think it's not a bad buy as far as a long-term investment. Mystic Monks is another project that released this week, and I was actually able to mint 10 of. This is another example of why I'm no longer going to be minting as far as the near-term future. There's just not enough new volume to really support all these new projects coming out, as well as support the projects that are already out. Now, they're going for about 22 ADA, and the mint price for these was 42 ADA, so it's about half of the mint price. They also haven't sold out yet, and they're about 2,050 out of the 2,222 that they're dropping. I'm personally just keeping the ones I have, and I do think that once they sell out that we could slowly see these pump up in price, but only buy this if you like the art and you think it might take off in the future, similar to Jarheads. Instead of minting these, if you did want to get into this investment, I would look for people that are posting them for under retail and look for ones that are really rare. Like, I was able to find some really rare ones that were posted for under that 42 ADA price that might be a great buy if you're looking for a long-term investment. But overall, this is a little bit more risky right now just because they didn't sell out still, and it's already been like 2 days. Blockowls is another project I have my eyes on just because on the 12th of this month, they are releasing their little rocket ships for their Blockowls, which actually look pretty cool. They're going to be $90 US dollars, so however much ADA it is at that point in time. But I think these look really good, and I think the reason that we've seen a big pullback on these because they were at like 275, 300 is because people were able to use these in order to get into the whitelist for that next project. I think that these could potentially go down to around 200, and if they do, that could be a pretty good buy-in price. As far as their rockets go, I think that would be a pretty good buy as far as minting, but the crazy thing is like everything hasn't been doing well recently as far as minting, so that might be another situation where I'm kind of a little hands-off and just see what happens with those rockets, and if those rockets end up doing really well and create a lot of hype, then maybe these Blockowls will go up as well. Mocossi is another project I have my eyes on just because they're releasing their breeding soon, where you're going to be able to pair two of these guys together and breed a new Mocossi, and maybe that Mocossi is super rare. Now, I think that when this game releases and when that breeding releases, that we could see a push up with these guys just because people are going to want to be able to breed, play the game, and make money from that. So this is something I have my eyes on. If you are going to invest in this, make sure that you buy two so you can do the breeding. Chibidango Heroes are releasing their season 2 and just I think tomorrow, and for that reason, a lot of these season 1s went up in price because if you own one of these season 1s, you'll be able to get into the season 2. I personally think that this is another situation where these are going to dip. I expect these to dip back down to 50 or potentially go down to 40 ADA after that drop, and I think that their season 2 isn't necessarily going to do super well just because of the way the market is right now. I mean, selling 10,000 of their season 2 at 50 ADA each when the volume is the way it is in this market, and especially if their season 1 is only going for about 10 above is pretty bearish to me. We'll see what happens here. I'm hoping that when they drop the season 2 that I'm able to get some snipes on some of the rare Chibidangos that have like hair traits that are rare. Like the traits for hair are really important in this game, and I'm guessing that a lot of people aren't going to know that. So when that season 2 comes out and people freak out, maybe I'll be able to get some good snipes for that and just hold as a long-term investment. That pretty much sums up this week's market update video. Now I want to end by saying this, guys. The market is very uncertain, and that goes with every single asset out there. And I want everyone to remember and realize that we are in a high-risk, speculative, emerging asset, which is called CNFTs. We are very early to this, and this is a higher risk thing. And because of that, whenever the market is shaky or a lot of stuff is going on in the world, we are going to see a lot of that money flow into safer options. This is the time, in my opinion, where you're more standoffish when it comes to new mints because we don't have the volume to support it. This is the time where you start consolidating stuff and you make sure that you have some money on the sidelines to dollar cost average. And then this is also the situation that if things do drop a lot, that you remember the long-term vision of where this is going to go in the future and you start dollar cost averaging into these blue chip CNFTs that aren't going to go anywhere. Projects like Spacebudz, projects like Dead Pixels, right? Pavia. These are the type of projects we're going to want to find ourselves in. We don't want to find ourselves minting all these new projects when the volume just isn't there to support it, and then we don't know if they're going to be established or survive in the long term. That is not the type of market we're in right now. We don't have that much money flowing in right now. We are in the market where we have to be a lot more careful, and things will change and cycles will change. But it's important that we adapt with the cycles and we adapt with the markets so we don't lose a bunch of money, especially on mints, because a lot of mints just haven't been doing well, unfortunately. Now that all that dreadful news is out of the way, I just wanted to remind everyone that this is just my opinions, and we could just go stupid and this could just be an off week. But, I just told you guys what I'm going to do, and we'll see. I'm not going to always say, oh, we're going to go up, we're super bullish, we're super bullish. There are going to be pullbacks, and that's expected, guys. That's when the opportunities happen. That's when if you missed out on getting into some of these blue chips months ago, now you can get in again at a much cheaper price. But yeah, hope everyone here has an awesome day.